Hello everyone and welcome to RIA Developers Live. My name is Seyad and I will be your host today. We will speak about agile principles in incident management today. But before we start with our special guest, I want to quickly share a few important things with you. First, we have a code of conduct, and in very short it means that we need to be nice to each other and treat everyone with respect. Okay, that's it actually. Second, if you are currently looking for a job or you just want to know what's out there in the market, please visit riadevelopers.com. You can find many offers there, most of them even with indicated salary information. Maybe there is something for you as well. Please just take a look. Third thing is we will have one more live talk this year. It will be tomorrow afternoon, and it will be about visualization in React. So if you are interested in React development, or if you want us to jump in, please also visit RIA Developers Live and RSVP for that talk. And last but not least, of course, we want to engage with you. We want you to engage with the speaker and with one another. So what you can see is a chat window in the right bottom of your screen. Feel free to use it, respect the code of conduct, and please also ask questions. So we will have a Q&A session after this presentation, and we will ask your questions to our guest after he finishes his presentation. My first question to you is, where are you watching us from? Please share it in the chat. And yeah, maybe there is something interesting to find out. With all that said, I want to introduce you to Tobias. Tobias is joining us from Canada, and he is the CTO of xMatters, and will share his knowledge with us today. So hi, Tobias. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much. How are you?
Quite well. I'm in the home office already. So yeah, that's also why my virtual studio is super equipped, but I hope you like it.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, I see you like music.
I do like music. Whenever I can get away from the computer, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Do you get time to practice?
You know, I do my best. I have lots of obligations, but whenever I get a chance, I do like to fool around with the synthesizers behind me here.
Okay.
If we have time after the Q&A, I can do some demos of that as well. Just kidding.
Oh, that's good to hear. So looking forward to that. So Thomas, thank you. The stage is yours.
Okay, thanks so much. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you are seeing a slide. Can you confirm? I assume that you can see a slide, so I'll proceed. All right, so thanks again for having me today. We're going to be talking about incidents. In particular, we're going to define what sort of incidents we're talking about here. Who are the folks that care about those incidents and may be responsible for their remediation? And most importantly, what can we apply from what we've learned in agile software development, methodologies like Scrum, the DevOps movement, and the SRE, the implementation of DevOps? What can we learn from all of these things and apply them to incident management? And then finally, so not to subject you to just slides, I'll do a demo and we can see how to apply some of these ideas in a practical way. So first of all, what sort of incidents are we talking about today? We're not talking about the destruction of Manhattan or alien invasion as the slides might suggest. What we're talking about is an interruption to digital service. So these are the digital services that we as developers are all responsible for. And they come in a variety of flavors. It could be a full outage, as we saw with Google Authentication earlier this week. Just as this presentation was starting, I noticed in my email, I got a notification from Duo that they were experiencing an outage. So it could be a full outage of a digital service that impacts end users. Thankfully, more commonly these days, incidents come in the form of performance degradations. So these could be incidents that impact the performance of a website. It could be delays in order processing or payment processing, and so on and so forth. So not a full outage, but just a degradation of performance. Sort of moving down into more technical indications of incidents, we could be talking about an SLO breach. So if you're familiar with SRE practice, you'll know that SLOs and SLIs are very important. These are service level objectives and service level indicators. And these represent various critical metrics in regards to the customer experience. So when we're approaching a breach of an SLO or have breached an SLO, that could raise an incident. Even more abstractly, we could be raising an incident based on an anomaly. So in this day and age, we have machine learning algorithms that can look at data and without knowing anything about the problem domain, be able to discover anomalies which might be indicative of something going wrong in the system. So we might be investigating an incident with very little information. There might be a suggested root cause, but all we know is that there's an anomaly in, let's say, logging. But all of these things boil down to more or less the same thing, which is that either customer experience is being impacted or it's about to be impacted, or we suspect that it's about to be impacted. So these are the sorts of incidents we're talking about today. So who cares about these incidents? By definition, customers care about them, of course. But as for the folks that are responsible for incidents, primarily we're talking about service teams. So it's very common amongst our customers and the industry at large to center teams organizationally on services. So these services could be business services, like I mentioned, order processing. These could be microservices or other constituent services of business services. So for example, database services, network services, etc. So it's very common for our customers to adopt the you build it, you run it sort of ethos when it comes to organizing their teams. They have cross-functional teams that are responsible for their service and they specialize in that. In larger organizations, it's also very common to have an IT group or a major incident team that is responsible for incidents, maybe all incidents, or maybe just incidents over a certain severity threshold. So these departments specialize in the remediation and response to those incidents. In an ideal world, of course, a company would detect and remediate incidents long before their customers know about it. But of course, the world is not perfect. And at times, customers will call in and report issues or submit tickets. And these customers want to be kept informed as to the progress of the resolution of these issues. So the customer support team is that communications liaison, and they provide an essential role within the incident management process. For more important incidents, it's very common for engineering management to be involved. They might be involved as stakeholders, so they just want to know the progress of the incident, similar to a customer, or they may be engaged to coordinate resources and communication. And finally, for the most important incidents, execs need to be kept informed of the progress of remediation so that they can accept calls from large customers or sales to be able to be armed with the information about the current state of an incident and its expected resolution. So what does all this have to do with Agile and DevOps and SRE, et cetera? So if you think about an incident as maybe a compressed iteration of software development, we can apply some useful principles from these methodologies. So first of all, one of the core tenets of Agile is to ship working increments of software in very short iterations. So when you have a live incident, the most important thing for you to do is to minimize the customer impact. So any steps you can take to either minimize the impact, perhaps by region or perhaps by customer segment, or be able to minimize the severity of the issue, it's very advantageous to do that as soon as possible. So the idea is to keep making the situation better. It doesn't have to be 100% fixed, but if you can mitigate the issue, you're going a long way to minimizing that customer impact, customer experience impact. Something that we can learn from the DevOps transformation, if you've been through this, I think one of the core things with DevOps is to bridge between cultures. So when bridging between the operations engineering culture and the software development culture, we face lots of challenges. And if you think about all of the cultures represented on the previous slide amongst the groups that are responsible for remediating incidents, I would say that the cultural divide is much wider. And in order to bridge that that cultural divide, we need to be able to, first of all, let those folks work in the tools and the methodologies that they're most comfortable in. So being able to provide information to all of these channels efficiently and in an automated fashion is crucial to making sure that all of those stakeholders are involved and informed. I'll talk a little bit more about this in the demo, and hopefully that illuminates what I'm trying to explain here. In terms of something like Scrum, a key part of Scrum is retrospectives. And just like in a software iteration, following an incident remediation, retrospection is extremely important. So holding a meeting where everyone discusses what went well, what didn't go so well, and the action items that need to be actioned so that an incident like this doesn't happen again. A core tenet of SRE practice is automation. So when there's a live incident, it's extremely important to do things quickly and to minimize mistakes. So when seconds count or minutes count, any automation you can execute to execute tasks quickly, tasks being things like either remediation actions or they could be diagnostic actions. Any automation will help in reducing the time spent analyzing and remediating an issue. And finally, iteration. So becoming better sprint over sprint, again, is a core tenet of agile. And this is extremely important in incident management, that continuous improvement is built into the incident management practice so that over time, your organization gets better and better at it, and it becomes more or less routine. I want to talk a little bit more about this. If your organization has incidents every day, you're going to be getting lots of practice at incident remediation. I hope that's not the case for you. At xMatters, that is not the case either. So what we found was it was very useful to practice incident management at least once a week. So we have something called Failure Friday. I think it's a common practice within the industry. And what happens on Failure Friday is that somebody is tasked with being a bad actor in the system and going and sabotaging something in our test environment. Our test environment matches prod exactly, so all of the monitoring and alerting and diagnostic tools are set up there. So this person would go and perhaps remove resources from a microservice. Perhaps they would interrupt network connectivity or slow down network connectivity, and then grab some popcorn, sit back, and watch the sparks fly. So at that point, teams would be alerted to this interruption of service and remediated as soon as possible, of course, using xMatters incident management tools. So why do we do this? First of all, it builds confidence within the teams. If a team or team member is not necessarily that practiced in incident management, this is something where they have a safe place to make mistakes and learn and improve. We've also found that this increases the pace of refining our processes. So as we retrospect a Failure Friday incident, we can see what things took the longest, where perhaps we got stuck, and if there are any processes that we can change to eliminate those bottlenecks. We found that it's always possible to expand our automation suite for repetitive tasks or tasks that might be useful in a crisis. And I'll talk a lot about this in the demo, so I'll leave it at that for now. And finally, just for selfish purposes, we use this process for getting feedback on the product itself, on the xMatters incident management product. So this is a great way to supplement information from customers that we get and see the product in action every week. All right, so we're heading into the demo, but what I like to do before doing a product demo is just set the stage with a story. So this story is about our fictional customer, the Tyrell Corporation. If you're familiar with the reference, you know that Tyrell is the world's foremost purveyor of artificial humans. And like many of our real customers, the Tyrell Corporation is in the midst of a transformation of modernizing their operations. And they have different cultures within their company. And they have a sort of leading edge team that is responsible for the web admin interface of their fleet of replicants. A little known fact that replicants have a web admin interface. That would have saved Deckard some time had he known that. But so we have this team, and they're an agile team. As such, you might recognize a lot of components of their tool chain. So their CI/CD pipeline uses Git and Jenkins. Critical infrastructure component for them is RabbitMQ. For any software changes, they track that using Jira. One of their key monitoring tools is New Relic for performance monitoring, amongst other tools. And finally, they live and breathe in Slack. So all collaboration is done in Slack. However, this team does not live in a vacuum, and there is a major incident team in Tyrell as well. They are responsible for any major outages or other incidents. And as you can imagine, their role is very important. We've all seen the movie. We know what happens when replicants malfunction. So they adhere to corporate standards. One of those standards is that ServiceNow is the source of record for all major incidents, and tickets there need to be kept up to date with the progress of incident remediation. And in order to minimize the number of inbound inquiries or complaints from customers, a status page should be posted for every major incident. So with that, I'm going to go into a demo. And since this is a developer audience, I think everyone will forgive me if I show that I'm actually simulating an incident using Postman. So I'm going to send in an incident. Now, let's go over to the xMatters mobile application. So if I'm an on-call resource, hopefully you can see the mobile application here. If I'm an on-call resource, I'm going to receive an alert that indicates that New Relic has detected an issue. And if I drill into that notification, I can see a bunch of information has been provided to me. First of all, of course, we have basic information about what New Relic has detected, and we have a link into New Relic if we want to go drill into that further. But I'd like to call your attention here to some diagnostics that have been run in advance. So for that web admin team, they know that because they rely on Rabbit, and they know that there is a particular queue that is critical to their functioning, we have, in advance of alerting, gone and taken a sample of what that queue size is. And I can see here that there are almost 7,500 messages in that queue. And I know that to be not a good state to be in. That queue should never be that large. Secondly, I can see that there has been a change, and it's very common for incidents to be related to some sort of software change. In this case, I've gone and looked and seen that there's a commit, a recent commit by Greg Smart, and a deployment associated with that commit. So I know that something has changed in the infrastructure, and it's this is probably a serious issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to immediately take the nuclear option amongst my responses here and create a major incident. So that notification relates back to what I was saying about automation. If there are common things that need to be done in relation to incident remediation, then having those done in advance of even a notification going out can shave off precious minutes. So in calling a major incident, xMatters has gone and done some more automation. I can see here that I have a new channel that's been created. So I'm going to go into that channel. And I will ask you to take a look here at the incident ID. You don't have to memorize it. There's not a test. And there are definitely no prizes. So don't concentrate too hard. But here we have a channel that's been created. Doug Pete has been invited to that channel. And we have a number of artifacts that have been created on our behalf, again, to save us time during the course of an incident. So I'm just going to go ahead and open all of these links and show you what they mean. And while I'm over here, I'm going to just respond to one of these alerts. Okay, great. So here we have a JIRA issue that's been created on our behalf. We have the basic details about what's going on with the incident, the summary and the description. But in addition to that, we have cross-linked here all of the other artifacts. So we have a ServiceNow ticket that's been created, a status page that's been created, and an xMatters incident console. Heading over into ServiceNow, you can see much the same thing. Here's our ServiceNow ticket that is required to be created for the major incident team. And scrolling down, again, we can see that an activity log has been created that allows you to cross-link to all of the other artifacts. So it's very easy for somebody who is used to working in ServiceNow to, first of all, see what's going on, but also be able to get to the other artifacts if they want to. So this is what I was mentioning earlier about bridging cultures. Finally, we have a status page that's been created. So already customers are notified that there's a major incident going on and they don't need to call in and let us know about it. And then here's the xMatters incident console that has been created to help an incident commander navigate their way through the remediation of this incident. So I can start here by looking at just again, the summary and description of the incident. We have an incident life cycle. So here the status can be set to in progress because we're working on this issue, investigating. We know that this is an important issue, so I'm going to go ahead and set this all the way to critical. Androids malfunctioning. And then we have the impact duration. So this, as an incident commander, this is what I'm focusing on. I want to minimize what the incident duration is for my customers. I can go and edit it if it's inaccurate. So for example, if monitoring was late picking this up, I can say this actually started happening way back at 8:12, and then make this impact duration more representative of reality. On the left-hand side of the screen here, we see a resolvers panel. This is something that xMatters has been doing for a very long time, engaging resolvers, engaging the right people with the right knowledge to be able to remediate these incidents. In addition, this is quite a dynamic thing. So for example, we can see that the XM API team has been engaged, and Mary Finkel very dutifully has accepted the summons. The proxy service team has not responded, and I can go and check out. Okay, proxy service looks like Michelle has not responded. It's about to escalate to Doug, so hopefully Doug responds. And then over here on the right, further automation has been executed to provide collaboration channels for our resolvers. So we've created a conference bridge in case resolvers want to engage verbally on this issue, and for a major incident, that's very likely. And we've also created a Slack channel, as you saw earlier. If for whatever reason we got to this incident through the console rather than through Slack, we can link to that Slack channel and get involved in the conversation here. So at this point, between me and Mary, we are not able to resolve this incident, but we do see some clues that it probably has something to do with Postgres, so we can dynamically engage the Postgres team. So again, this resolvers list is meant to be very dynamic. We might be adding more resolvers if the situation escalates. We might be removing resolvers or dismissing resolvers when the situation dictates that that we don't need them anymore, so as not to waste their time. So again, this is a very dynamic part of the incident management process. So supposing that somebody on the Postgres team has responded and we've mitigated this issue, again, we always have a chance to adjust these critical pieces of data whenever we make an update, so that for our retrospective, these things are accurate. So rolling restart of Postgres cluster, mitigated the issue, and we head into a mitigated state. And then finally, if the system looks stable and everyone's happy to go back to bed, we can set this into a resolved state. System is stable. So what xMatters is doing now is closing the books on this incident and calculating all of the critical metrics. Across the top here, we have how long it took us to detect. So it looks like it took us 11 minutes from the time of impact to detect that. That's probably not a very good indication of the quality of our monitoring. Once we did know there was an issue, it only took us 2 minutes to engage, which is pretty good. From our customer's point of view, we had a 15-minute outage, which, you know, in this day and age is a very significant outage. I think expectations of performance of digital systems, both in terms of uptime and in terms of performance, have only gone up over time. And with COVID and folks relying on digital services more and more, that expectation has increased. So obviously something we need to work on here when we had a 15-minute outage. And then overall, the time to resolve this issue was 6 minutes, not bad. We also have further information that we can feed into our post-mortem process or our post-incident review process. We can look at any statuses that we spent a lot of time in. Those are likely opportunities for improving our process, as I mentioned earlier. Similarly, being in varying severities for long periods of time might indicate that we can improve our process. And finally, everything that we saw that happened during this incident was recorded in our incident timeline. So all of the initial conditions here, the collaboration channels that we created through automation, engaging responders. We can see that Mary accepted at 8:24. And all of the changes to the incident process and comments that were made throughout are recorded for purposes of post-incident review. And I'll quickly go and show you what that looks like. So let's say the following morning, the team gathers to retrospect about how the incident remediation went. This is very much like a Scrum Scrum sprint retrospective, where everyone contributes what went well, what didn't go so well, and what do we need to change. And this also provides a report that can be distributed amongst the team, or if necessary, or if desired, to other stakeholders in the process. So I can collaborate with the team and fill in all the details about the incident. So the impact was that androids ran amok, and so on. Fill in all of the relevant details about the incident. If I am going to distribute this to a wider audience, I might want to edit the timeline in the sense that perhaps it's too fine-grained a detail, like I don't need to know actually all of these specific notification events, and I can remove those. I don't necessarily need to know about when the collaboration channels were created. I can save that, and now my post-incident report is much more concise for those stakeholders. Again, bridging cultures. Finally, we can track, we have a fairly simple way of tracking actions associated with an incident. So in this case, perhaps I would like to implement auto-scaling and Postgres. And I'm just going to steal my Jira link here just for fun, use that, and I'll assign this to myself, and I'll give myself to the end of the week to implement auto-scaling. That should be plenty of time. So I can create a list here of action items, who they're assigned to, when they're due, and a basic life cycle here, whether they're completed or rejected. So that's the incident management process. Since the audience here is developers, I do want to take some time and show you how all of this is stitched together. So I'm going to go into the xMatters flow designer. All of the things that you saw, all the bits of automation are represented here. They're not something that's baked into the product, and I don't think that would really be possible or desirable. Because every team is different. In particular, the fictional team that we're talking about uses Rabbit, GitHub, Jenkins. This is specific to their team. So these pieces of automation are implemented by them and put into their tool chain, but they're not applicable to all teams within the organization. So this is highly customizable. I'm going to go back to my mobile interface here. Just give me a moment. And look at that initial notification that I got. So here I can see this this diagnostic information maps one-to-one to this workflow here. So I'm receiving a signal from New Relic that's telling me that something's wrong. Immediately I go into the Rabbit queue and find out the size of the Rabbit queue and provide that as content to the notification. I go into GitHub looking for recent changes and go into Jenkins to look for recent deployments. And all of that information is included in the notification where we create an alert in xMatters. The responses that you see down here map one-to-one with these triggers here. And the response that we chose was create major incident. So here we see we're creating an issue in Jira, creating a ServiceNow ticket, creating an incident in status page, an xMatters incident console, and then notifying. And then we're going back to each of those systems and cross-linking all of the previous artifacts that have been created. This particular workflow supports both Microsoft Teams and Jira. So we have two flows for that. We took the Jira route in this case, and I want to open up the Slack, pardon me, create channel step. And what we have here is inputs into the step as to how it's going to do its job. Obviously, most important is the channel name. And in any of these steps, we have the outputs of all previous steps available as drag and drop into these inputs. So in this particular case, I had created a ServiceNow channel. As part of that creation process, I get back a unique record ID, an incident number, a priority, and I can drag and drop those things in. So I can create my channel name based on a ServiceNow ticket ID. And that is why I wanted to point that out here, is that this channel name is actually based on the ServiceNow ticket ID. As well, you can see in a similar fashion, the xMatters incident followed that same pattern. So again, this is an easy way for folks that are working with different systems to cross-reference and make sure that everyone's on the same page. So all of these steps are part of our built-in steps. If you look at our apps here, we have integrations to a lot of very common systems used in incident management. But I think it's worth taking a couple minutes to look at how you might create a step of your own. If you're implementing an integration with a system that's perhaps something that you've built or something that's off the shelf that we don't have an app for, it's very easy to go and create a new step or a new trigger to be able to integrate with that system. So I'm going to go into the triggers. Here you can see I have various triggers that I can use to do with events that occur in xMatters. I can initiate these flows by email, by submission of forms. We have a couple of app triggers here. But let's suppose that I work for the Tyrell Corporation and we have our own system that is not represented in out-of-the-box triggers. So I can create those. I can create a new trigger, and we'll call this like Android alert. I can set an icon for this trigger. For now, I'm going to have this trigger set to be as in development because I'm still working on it. This is going to be a V1 step, V1. And I'll just call your attention here to this run location field. All of these steps and triggers can run in the xMatters cloud, but they can also run via an agent technology on any system. So if you are integrating with something that's behind the firewall, you can use an xMatters agent to integrate with it. And the flow will run perhaps partially in the cloud, perhaps partially against an agent. It's transparent to the flow designer where these steps are running. So that's a good possibility for customers that are in a hybrid cloud environment. So we're going to set that to cloud for now. For outputs of this trigger, the job of this trigger is to convert an inbound payload to a set of outputs that are usable by the flow designer. So I'll say Android ID is a relevant output, and then perhaps just severity. And then the meat of creating this trigger is implementing this script. So I'm going to open this up to full page. This script is JavaScript. This is just a sample script for implementing a trigger. It's very easy to do something like this. So for example, if I know that my payload is JSON, I can just uncomment this and parse the request body using a JSON parser. I suppose I could have done that here too. And then my job here, if we have a very simple JSON payload, this is really easy. I can just do something like, say, Android ID is equal to payload Android ID. And that's really all there is to it, to implementing a step like this. Once I save this, I then have it available here in my palette, and I can drag it onto my canvas and start using it. So very easy to integrate to third-party systems. The process for steps is almost identical. There is also, this is a fully featured development environment. So if you want to go and edit this particular step and perhaps set it to deployed, then I can remove that badge that said it was in development, and now it's usable by other people other than myself. Similarly, if I wanted to, let's say, improve this step, I can create a new version of it. In this case, I'm going to duplicate the Android alert step, and now I have a copy. So I'm going to call this Android alert for Nexus 6 models. So this one supports Nexus 6. And I can deploy that. and now here in my palette, I have two versions of this. I have my standard Android alert, and then I have another version that's in development for Nexus 6 models. Similarly, you can use libraries to share code across these steps, and you have very sophisticated sharing options so that you can deploy them for various groups of users within your system. So that is what it looks like behind the scenes. I think based on time, it's probably a good time for me to wrap the demo. So I will hand it over to questions.
Thank you, Tobias. That was very interesting. I hope you enjoyed it as well to present it.
I did, thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we do have some questions. So first of all, I will take the last question. It's about the presentation. Tom is asking, or he's saying he enjoys the presentation, but he just came right now. Tom, no problem. We will have this recording also available afterwards. So you have maybe missed it live, but you have not missed it entirely. So we will make this available publicly. You can still ask questions if you have something you want to share with us. So the first question the next question comes from Sven. Sven is asking, how did COVID influence these processes, and did it have an influence at all?
So for xMatters in particular, obviously we were impacted in the sense that we all had to immediately work from home, and that was an interesting transition. The fully remote working was something that we'd been considering for a long time, and we were forced to adopt it very quickly. And I can say that it was an amazing success. We have very stringent, not stringent isn't the right word. We have a good metrics on velocity of how we're proceeding through backlogs and so on. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we saw an increase in velocity. I think that was probably common across the industry. So I think a lot of people headed home and had nothing to do but work. So that's what they did. Yeah, that of course tapered off as it's not really a sustainable way of working. But in terms of like as a company, for us, we didn't see major impacts. We're very lucky to be in an industry that was relatively unaffected. So many of our customers were in the same boat, and they were, let's say, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, expectations of availability and performance of digital services have increased in a profound way across the industry. Customers that previously would have went to a brick and mortar establishment now relied entirely on digital access to a particular service. And when that didn't work, or when it was slow, those customers are very fast to try something else. So it's very easy in the digital realm to be able to just sample some competitor if you don't like the service that you're getting. So how that impacted us is we saw a very significant increase in usage. Early on in the pandemic, we saw that notifications for engagement to incidents were up roughly 50%, which is a good proxy for our overall usage. So a spike in 50% usage was quite exciting for us. We survived. We managed to manage our way through that. But what I think that illustrates is that companies, our customers, were very responsive to any incidents. They were hyper vigilant in terms of making sure that their services were always available and very performant. So
yeah, that's good to hear. I'm just starting with the next question. It's from Chris. He is asking for a friend who is a newbie. Okay, that's interesting. What's, in your opinion, the minimum environment to start with, and how long does it take to set up to set that up for a small team?
Right. So, asking for a friend, I'm sure. So, as you could see from the demo, like I had a fairly sophisticated workflow there that integrated a number of tools. However, none of that was actually necessary for a functioning incident management platform. You can do a trial of xMatters, create a small team within your xMatters environment, and be initiating incidents within minutes. Where you start to take advantages of the more sophisticated parts of the platform is when you discover you need automation for your particular environment that you're seeing, or service that you're responsible for. So I am not a coder. I have not coded in a long time, and I recently created a step for integrating with a particular system, and it literally took 5 minutes. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. In this day and age where we have, services communicating with each other via JSON is like the most common by far, and typically JSON payloads are pretty flat. It's very easy to just take a template, a step or trigger, and integrate with your system of choice. So your mileage may vary. However, the samples within the environment are very straightforward, and even someone like me could do it within 5 to 15 minutes.
Okay, so how would you describe the learning curve?
The learning curve I would describe as low. You can get very sophisticated with those steps if you want to add lots of logic, but typically it's not required. It's just not something that you need to do in most cases. So.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. We don't have more questions from the audience, but I have a question. What
Sure.
do you think will the future look like? Like, is there going to be even more automation? Will it be everything like maybe even fully automated? Or what are the current challenges? What are improvements? Where is the space for improvements and so on?
Right. Well, I don't think that expectations are like, let's suppose the pandemic is over tomorrow and everyone goes back to their normal lives. I don't think expectations of digital services are going to decrease. I think that this acceleration that we've seen in digital transformation was just that. It was an acceleration. It's not a temporary situation. So I do think that companies are going to have to continue to put a lot of effort into the reliability and performance of their services to remain competitive. So how a lot of things about the pandemic that changed are bad, horrible. People are suffering, but at the same time, there are some things that have improved in terms of our daily way of life. Things that were manual processes now have become digitized, and that's been great for the convenience of all. I'm talking about things like better reservation systems, or better anywhere access to services that previously you needed to go and find in person, something like that. So will everything be automated? I think that although it is always a great idea to shift left, and if there's any sort of ability to prevent an incident before it happens, you should absolutely pursue that, and it is possible in some cases. But if a company is being innovative, they are by nature taking risks, and you have to take some risks to be able to be innovative and provide new and interesting services for your customers. And those will always come with incidents. So maybe put another way, if you're not having any incidents, you're probably not taking enough risks and innovating enough. So I believe that although you should never experience the same incident twice, that is never a good outcome. Experiencing incidents is not necessarily indicative of a bad thing. You can resolve those incidents before your customers notice them. The impact is much, much lower. So yeah, I don't think we'll ever automate incidents away entirely.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I have another question, which is maybe not tech related, but more maybe a psychological aspect. I've been a developer, but I have never worked with incidents or with in a DevOps sphere. So how can you imagine, like, when you have a major outage in a big company, and basically the people who have to take care about that, how do you make sure that people don't get crazy? You know, like yesterday there was this outage at Google, and I can imagine like people running around at the Google office and screaming and doing everything to resolve it. But actually you need to kind of also have people in the team who are really, calmed down and so on. Are there special trainings for that, or does this just come with time when you experience outages for a couple of times?
Yes, I understand exactly what you're asking, and xMatters has had our own journey along this. And I will say that, first of all, training to some extent is, it is a good thing for particular roles. In particular, incident commander training is important to understand what your role is as an incident commander. Similarly, for larger incidents, there's a scribe role where you are responsible for making sure that everything gets recorded for postmortem purposes. Similarly, there's a communications lead role. All of those roles do require a certain amount of training. However, back to the theme of the talk and agile processes, I can't remember exactly how it's phrased, but one of the tenets of agile is responding to change over following a plan. So there's only so much planning that you can do for an incident. After all, if you expected the incident, it never should have happened in the first place. So I think the best you can do is to provide some basic training on what the roles, what the function of each role in an incident is. Accumulate a certain amount of automation that is relevant for all incidents so that you can save time and avoid mistakes by using that automation. And then the third part is just practice. So as I mentioned, Failure Fridays, we saw a drastic change when we started going through Failure Fridays amongst the responders from that, basic starting point of terror, as you described, to almost maybe not routine, but to the point where folks were, they knew what they were supposed to do. They were confident that this incident would be resolved because they had the tools to do that. And then when there's a real incident, they would apply that same level of confidence, and it had a profound effect on our resolution of live incidents. That was much faster, just due to that, cool-headedness. So, yeah, practice, I would say, is the short answer to your question.
Okay, thank you very much. There is one additional question from Thomas. He is asking, is there an issue management where you prepare for specific incidents in advance?
Right.
I'm not sure if it's been covered already, but please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate. I think that if you anticipate an issue, if you anticipate an issue and it happens, you're probably doing something wrong. You should not, ship a service that you expect to have incidents. As much as possible, you want to avoid that. So no, I wouldn't say there's I wouldn't say that you should prepare for certain incidents. I would say that you'd eliminate the root cause of those incidents so that they never happen. That being said, there is a lot of value to incident scenarios. So I'll give you a quick example. At xMatters, if we have an incident that's going on for longer than 15 minutes, we, by policy, have a regional failover. So we will fail all our services over from one region to another. That is something that's, we would prefer not to do that ever, but we also know that if we're not making any headway with diagnostics, that we are actually going to fail over. So we practice that failover fairly consistently, and it is 100% automated, of course, and we actually execute that automation on a daily basis with a test system. So we have a test system failing over from one region to another every day. So there are things that you can prepare for in advance. They're kind of like that's the nuclear option again, that we would fail over our entire infrastructure. However, generally speaking, in answer to your question, I would say that if you're expecting an incident and not doing anything about it, there's probably something wrong.
Okay, thank you, Tobias. We have 2 or 3 minutes left, and you promised in the beginning, and if you want, you can show us some of your skills as a musician.
I was just joking, and unfortunately,
okay.
I'm not actually set up to stream audio,
okay.
so we'll maybe leave that for next time.
We will make another session next year with you,
okay,
and then we will deliver that as well.
I will be prepared.
Okay, that's a deal. Perfect. Yeah, Tobias, thank you very much for joining us today. It was a pleasure. Thanks also to the audience for asking the questions and joining us. As I said in the beginning of the talk, if you are looking for a job or if you want to know what's on the market, visit readevelopers.com and browse through. Maybe there is something for you. And if you are interested in React development, then join our session tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. actually in the afternoon with Daisy. It will be a great session. It will be the last React Developers live session for this year. So looking forward to see you all again tomorrow. And yeah, Tobias, thank you again. And good night, everyone. Bye.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye-bye.